In today's video, we're going to take a look at some NHL trade rumors focusing on the Ottawa Senators, Vancouver Canucks, and the Montreal Canadiens. We also have some news on some key injuries and recoveries, and I want to talk a little bit about the NHL officiating so far this season. We'll get into that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about here today. I want to start things off, though, talking a little bit about the NHL officiating. Now, this is just something that's been bugging me. I've avoided talking about it here so far. I don't usually say a whole lot about the referees because I understand that it's a really difficult job. It's impossible to get everything right. Things are going to be missed. You can't please everybody. But with video review, especially right now, and all the things they can look at, they're able to make a lot of things right with video review, etc. So I really try to avoid really bashing them or complaining too much about them because I've been involved with sports my whole life as a player, and of course I'm involved a lot now with minor league sports in my area with my daughter and stuff. So I know what it's like. I understand how hard it can be, and you have to respect the job they do, for generally speaking. But I must say, this year so far, NHL officiating has been absolutely awful and brutal. The calls that we're seeing on the ice, there's so many. It's a combination of not necessarily what they're calling. It's a combination of calls that are being made that are just really not penalties, in my opinion. We've seen things not be called that absolutely look like they're clear-cut penalties. And then we saw a situation today in the Columbus-Carolina game where they even blew a video review challenge, like an offside challenge by the coach, on a goal that should not have counted for the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, it was even corrected during the intermission. So ultimately Columbus challenges the goal for offside, and something happened, obviously, between the reviews and the referees and all the angles they were looking at with the NHL. Something ended up happening. Anyways, I didn't see it live. I only caught it afterwards, that they basically play ended up resuming before they could get through all the angles and all the different looks that they could take a look at it. So Columbus was deemed to be not successful in their challenge, given a penalty, and the goal counted. Well, during the intermission, which was only a few minutes after, they determined that there was some more angles and reviews that they hadn't seen yet, and that it indeed was offside. So the penalty still had time on it. So they wiped out the penalty, but yet the goal still counted. They couldn't go back and change the goal, which to me doesn't seem right as well. So that's not just on the refs, that's on the league. That's just, I don't know. Anyways, it's just, I can't get over how many things are being missed or called but shouldn't be. It's just really been bad this year, and especially you would think with referees not traveling so much and kind of staying within a division like the teams are, that they would kind of get used to what's being called and not. And it's just, I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on, but it's the first time in a long time that I can really honestly say that I just can't keep quiet about it anymore, that I just really think that they're not doing a great job, and there's way too many things not being called properly at all. So now that that's out of the way, let's jump into some more actual news here. Now, of course, we have some updates on some injuries. We have Sean Couturier finally is able to return for the Philadelphia Flyers. So, of course, that's huge for them. Of course, the top line center for Philly is big. He's been out for a while, and that was a big blow while he was out. Now, in terms going the other way, players getting injured are going to be out for some time. We have Robert Thomas of the St. Louis Blues, who's really been growing his game the last few years, has taken on a bigger role. He's going to be out of action with a broken thumb for about 4 to 6 weeks, so that's certainly not good news for the Blues. And then we saw an injury in last night's game for the Maple Leafs as well. Wayne Simmonds, the Wayne train, looks like he's going to be out of action, and it could be up to 6 weeks. We don't really have an official announcement on that, but it looks as though that's what they're saying today from different NHL reporters, that it very well could be that long. Maybe they'll get lucky and it won't be. Obviously, it's a hand injury. So we will see. He was doing really, really well, doing well in the power play, net front presence, obviously dropping the gloves, has really been able to contribute, especially after Thornton got hurt and he got more of an opportunity. That really, he's really stepped up and been a great addition, a great spark for Toronto. So that's going to be a big loss for them. The injuries continue to pile up for the Leafs here, and I wonder with him being out if they'll maybe look to take a look at that trade option that we were talking about yesterday, that they apparently have had discussions with the Flames around Sam Bennett, who can play a gritty style of game too. But for right now, they actually made a signing. They brought in Scott Sabourin. Now, Sabourin was with their American Hockey League team, but he was on an AHL-only contract. Now his contract's basically been upgraded. Now he's on a 1-year, 2-way deal at league minimum, so he can play with the minors and also be called up to the NHL team. Of course, Scott Sabourin played last year with Ottawa. Certainly a tough customer, willing to drop the mitts. He's not going to give you the offensive side of things that Simmonds can give you, though. It's not exactly going to be the same. He'd be somebody that would play less minutes on the fourth line, but still, if you need somebody to play physical style or to handle the situation, drop the gloves, etc., he can be that guy, but that's about all he's going to give you in that sense. Not going to get the power play time and stuff that Simmonds is. So we'll see what the Leafs do. Be curious to see, though, if they do want to revisit that Sam Bennett trade possibility that was being discussed in yesterday's video. If you didn't catch that, I'll link it in the YouTube card so you can go back and have a look and see what we were talking about. Now, of course, as I mentioned, we have some NHL trade talk here, looking at 3 NHL teams. Of course, the trade talk right now seems to be mostly all about the Canadian teams. Let's start with the Senators today. Additional updates here from a variety of NHL insiders, and of course, it was talked about again last night in the Saturday headlines that the Senators are indeed trying really hard to trade center iceman Derek Stepan, who, yes, they've only acquired a short time ago, but things haven't really worked out. Now, there was some reports that he and Coach DJ Smith weren't really seeing eye to eye on his role in the team, and there could be some truth to that. I'm not completely sure that we've really been able to verify that, but at the same time, one thing that we do know for sure is that he has indeed talked to the team about being traded back to the U.S. because he's just away from his family. His wife had just delivered a new baby right before he came up to join the Sens near the end of training camp, which was a difficult thing, I'm sure, for him to do, to take off like that right after having a baby. But at the same time, it's not even so much that he had to leave. Players are used to that. But he won't be able to really see his family until the season's over, which, for them in Ottawa, being unlikely to make the playoffs, we're looking at sometime mid to late May when the season's over, because with all the quarantining rules, for him to go home or for them to come see him, there's going to have to be isolation, and it's just not going to work out. I mean, he wouldn't have much time to go see them at all, given the tight schedule and the number of games. For them to come visit him in Ottawa, they'd have to do a 14-day quarantine, and that's just a lot to expect here, so it's just not really working out, and he'd like to be home closer to his family, so they are actively trying to trade him. Now, one key thing with him as well, he does have a big cap hit of over $6 million. Now, one thing that does make this contract more attractive, though, is that he's only making $5 million total income. $3 million of it was already paid via signing bonus with the Coyotes before he was traded. So the Senators were only on the hook for $2 million. So if they trade him, part of that $2 million's already been actually paid. So the acquiring team, in an actual physical cash standpoint, won't really be paying a whole lot. And if the Senators want to help retain some money on that to bring the cap hit down, then that should make it easier too. So I do think at some point here they will find a home. They're not going to get the second round pick back, though, that they traded for him. That was a little bit too steep of a price. And things, like I said, haven't worked out for a variety of reasons. He hasn't played well either. That's not helping things. So maybe they'll get a 4th, 5th round pick. I'm not sure what they can get back. At this point, they just need to cut their losses and move on so they can give the spot to a guy like Logan Brown, for example. So we will see what happens here with Derek Stepan. It was also mentioned on Saturday headlines that the Senators are a little bit now kind of deep on the blue line with what they have. I mean, they're not deep in a sense that they have a lot of great defensemen, but they have a lot of bodies back there. Now, some of their defensemen are not too bad, and they do have some, not so great guys back there that they could certainly benefit from moving on from, which is not going to be an easy task. But in the recent week or two, they've seen Ertom Zub join the team, who they signed from Russia. He had been on a taxi squad waiting for his opportunity. He got into a few games and he's looked pretty solid. He's a kind of defenseman, and he's not flashy, but he's picked up a few assists, and you haven't really noticed him on time, which means he's not making a lot of defensive mistakes. So that's been good. And Eric Branstrom's been up and played the last 2 games. He's been getting 16, 17, 18 minutes ice time and didn't look too bad. Get a little bit of offensive output too. So those 2 guys seem to be ready and willing to take on more opportunity. Of course, you got guys like Shabbat and Zaitsev that are their top, normally the top pair. So that really only leaves 2 more spots, and they have guys like Eric Branson there. They have guys like Mike Riley. They have Braden Coburn. They have Josh Brown. And of course, they also have Christian Wolanin returning from injury in the next week as well. So, I mean, Wolanin should be a regular in there too. So, when you go, Shabbat, Zaitsev, Wolanin, Zub, and Brandstrom, that's 5 spots right there. I don't see Branson going anywhere. He hasn't been really all that great, but they did give him an A for an alternate captain this year. And he, in my opinion, hasn't been as bad as guys like Brown or Coburn, or to a degree even Riley. I mean, Riley plays a different style of game. He can be useful as a secondary power play guy or a third pair offensive defenseman. So hard to say who goes. They would probably prefer Coburn to be the first choice. After that, we're probably looking at maybe Brown or Riley. I'm not sure. I know Josh Brown has a connection to Coach DJ Smith. Brown was on DJ Smith's team in junior, and he was his captain. I know there's a connection there, so I'm not sure how easily they'll part with him, but at the same time, he hasn't been great. He also has another year in his contract, which a lot of these guys are on 1-year deals, so hard to say what happens, but they have some extra players back there. They could see somebody end up going on waivers here in the next little bit. If that doesn't happen, they want to get Logan Brown in the lineup too sometime in the next few games. And like I said, Wolanin is scheduled to come back, so we could see 1 or 2 players either moved or put through the waiver wire in Ottawa within this week. Now, when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, of course, we heard on Saturday headlines that a Jake Virtanen trade very well could be coming here extremely soon. I mean, we know the Canucks are off to a very frustrating start. Jim Benning has done some numerous interviews recently talking about the offseason and things they did and didn't do and how it all worked out, and that hasn't really made things better. You can see there's just something wrong with this Canucks team. I'm not sure, I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's a lot of frustration built up. You can see it in a lot of the players. JT Miller, Brock Besser, Elias Pettersson, some of their numbers are okay offensively, but it's just not quite happening. Even Quinn Hughes has been playing well offensively, but defensively has been kind of getting caved in a bit. Getting a big step back, and there's a lot of frustration there, and they need to do something to shake things up. And Chris Johnson on Saturday headlines felt that a Jake Virtanen trade very well might be what they end up pulling the trigger on. I've seen cases of Virtanen being linked to even other Canadian teams as well. Difficult to say. I mean, again, a guy like Sam Bennett in Calgary is drawing a lot of interest. A player we've talked about a lot lately. I've seen some reports suggesting a Virtanen for Bennett deal. Maybe that's something that would happen. I don't know. At the end of the day, though, the Vancouver Canucks, they're just not playing well defensively at all. Their blue line is not cutting it. Nate Schmidt's not being as good as he needs to be. Tyler Myers is not being as good as he needs to be. And, of course, they're both in longer-term contracts as well. Alex Edler has not played well. Hughes has put up the offense, but not the defense. There's a lot of issues there. The goaltending hasn't been great. You can say Holtby and Demko have been an issue, but to me, it's more the team in front of them than the goaltenders themselves. They've been hung out to dry a lot. They're not, the forwards aren't back checking. It just, something has to give here, and you have to wonder. Travis Green doesn't have a contract for next year yet. He's been waiting for an extension and hasn't come. Will he end up being a scapegoat and be let go over the slow start? It's really hard to say what the Vancouver Canucks will do, but like I said, Virtanen's name's in play according to Chris Johnson. There is going to be interest in Virtanen. I don't see a reason why another team wouldn't be willing to give him a fresh start. I mean, he's a great skater. He's a big physical guy who should be able to put the puck on the net more. There's certainly been a lot of questions around why his game hasn't progressed more over the years since he's been drafted. And we'll see. I mean, like I said, maybe there's a link there to a Bennett deal. I don't know. We'll have to find out. Tannen's name being out there, it looks as though he very well could be the first domino to fall in Vancouver, looking for some answers to get the season turned around. Now, another player I want to touch base on here as well is Montreal Canadiens defenseman Victor Mete, along with Sam Bennett, who has requested trades. We saw Mete get in the lineup shortly after that happened, played a couple of games, looked pretty good, but now we've had comments from head coach Claude Julien indicating that he's not sure when Mete is going to get back in the lineup because he's been really happy with the other 6 defensemen. I mean, obviously I know that the group ahead of them are pretty good. I mean, when you have Sherratt and Weber, you've got Petrie, you've got Edmondson, and of course you got Romanov and Kulak too. I mean, I understand that they're having a hard time, but really it sounded like in the beginning they were going to do a 3-man rotation between Mete, Romanov, and Kulak, and now Julien already seems to be going away from that, preferring to go with the other 6. So we'll see. I mean, I wonder if this is going to end up between the player and the agent starting to put a little bit more pressure on Montreal to get a deal done, because he was happy to get in the lineup, but now to hear already that it could be a while before he gets back in, I'm sure is only going to be frustrating, and that's likely going to continue to grow here if he has to continue to sit and wait. It's somebody's going to be the number 7 defenseman. No, that's the problem. In Montreal, I don't think they're really in a big hurry to trade this guy. They're one injury away from really needing him to play a much bigger role. I mean, I'm sure Cale Fleury's in a similar boat. He's also on the taxi squad waiting for more of a chance. At least Mente's got in a few times, whereas Fleury's still waiting for that chance. You know, at the end of the day, I don't think they're going to rush into this, but I wonder, though, after the comments from Julian, if we might see the agent for Mente and Mente himself put a little bit more pressure on Bergevin to get a deal done, if he's going to have to continue to sit out and wait. And lastly, here I want to touch base on Florida Panthers forward Brett Connolly. Of course, is a player that's been rumored to be out there and available for trade. Hasn't had a great start this year for the Florida Panthers. Still has some term left on his contract. Actually had a decent year last year in his first year in Florida after a career year with the Washington Capitals, but started off like 4 or 5 games with no points, no goals. It's been a healthy scratch a few times. There is rumors out there that the Vegas Golden Knights are a team that's showing interest here in Connolly and will like to consider finding a way to bring him in. Of course, they have their own fair share of cap challenges, so it's not quite clear what they would have to do. Of course, if you have equal money going in and out, that very well could be something that happens to work out for them, but we'll have to wait and see here. Vegas has only been back in action here after a brief pause for a little bit. They're waiting for Alex Pietrangelo to come back. I do not see them making any moves until Petro is back in the fold, and they have a few more games under their belt here to kind of see and get a better idea where things are at. But Connolly is a guy they have their eye on, and it may not happen right away, but I do suspect at some point that the Panthers find a way to move him, and Vegas could be very, very well where he ends up. So let me know your thoughts on everything discussed here today down in the comment section, and we can discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on new notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.